My name is Bruno Bianchi Sarcone, and I run Spainguru.es, and this is the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa webinar. Today is the 27th of November, 2025. And a little bit about Spainguru. 10 years supporting expats moving to Spain, huge community of 150,000 members, and I host weekly immigration webinars and newsletters. I have 6 webinars: non-lucrative visa, Q&A session, digital nomad visa, Spanish taxes, moving to Spain, and recently launched a new webinar together with Ainhoa Manero, where she is being part of it. And it's very interesting because we have an expert immigration lawyer who is joining us. So you can ask questions about immigrating to Spain to a professional. Next one is December 8th, Monday, 6 p.m. Central European Time. All my webinars are absolutely free. You can join them anytime, and you always get a recording, okay, on any of those webinars. So really interesting, in my opinion. You have wonderful reviews about Spainguru, almost 270 reviews, 99 of them 5 stars. And Spainguru is absolutely free. I never charge for any of the information or videos or anything there. You can join my weekly newsletter that I send every single Monday to 15,000 members, and YouTube channel with almost 7,500 subscribers, more than 1,000 videos, many of them about the digital nomad visa, more than 2,000 articles on Spainguru's blog. As I mentioned, 6 weekly webinars and a huge community, from which the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa Facebook group is one of the biggest out there with 19,000 members. So super, super active. And if you want to engage with professionals, legal experts, tax experts, gestores or tax accountants who can help you, register as autónomo in Spain or freelancer, and also file your taxes in Spain, and also filing your taxes in the US if you're from the US. You can find them on Spainguru.es. You also have financial planners, private health insurance, compliant for any Spanish visas, medical certificates, and every service that you need for your logistics, for your money transfers, learning Spanish, and so much more. I have so many personally vetted services. Most of them I have recommended for several years. So if you go here to services, you can find everything right here in this menu, okay, or in this page. All the links, all are personally vetted by me. So yes, obviously those services are paid, and of course I get a kickback or commission every time one of those services is sold, okay, and that's the way basically I can pay my invoices. So yes, but all the rest of Spainguru is absolutely free. Yes, you have the Move to Spain checklist as well, which is very interesting because it lists everything you need to do starting 1 year before moving to Spain, every single step, regardless of how and why you're moving to Spain, all the generic things that you need to do that hopefully will act as a reminder and also helps you structure your project of moving to Spain. So all that you can find on Spainguru for free. What are the webinar objectives? How to qualify for the digital nomad visa under the 2025 rules. We're going to talk about that. What documents you really need to submit, how to apply from Spain or from a consulate abroad, because this visa enables you to apply from both geographies, how taxes work, okay, and how renewals work, okay, and also updates of 2025, right? And this is the content. We're going to start with the terminology. Okay, so things we're going to be mentioning very often. First of all, UGE, Unidad de Grandes Empresas, is the government unit that evaluates your digital nomad visa application. They will focus on income, taxes, experience, contract validity, and more stuff. Decision will vary. Strong documentation is secret to fast approvals. Okay, so many people reported, many professionals as well, that even strong cases were denied, okay, and they can be quite erratic. However, UGE is much more streamlined than applying from a consulate abroad, okay, and also is faster. We're going to talk about all the advantages of applying from Spain, if that's a possibility to you. The average decision time in 2025 is about 10 to 20 working days when the application is strong. Apostille, okay? The apostille is an international certification that is used to legalize documents issued outside of Spain, okay, so foreign documents, so that it can be valid when you apply for Spanish procedures, okay? So this type of legalization is when the country that issued the document is member of the Hague Convention, okay? There are more than 100 countries part of the Hague Convention. Not all of them are part of this convention. For example, the United Arab Emirates will require legalization with their Ministry of Foreign Affairs instead. Now, also, sworn translators or traductor jurado in Spanish. This is an official translator that is appointed by the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, okay? They have a unique signature, and all the documents that are not in Spanish must be translated, okay? Not all of them by a sworn translator, but the official ones do need to be translated by sworn translator. I'm gonna go through all the specific list. And you don't need to send the documents physically overseas to them. Everything can be handled by email. Autónomo. Autónomo is basically a freelancer or contractor in Spain. It is a self-employed legal status in Spain. Then certificate of coverage, okay, or social security certificate of coverage, or A1 form, okay. This is a certificate that proves that you're paying social security in your home country. And if there is a social security agreement between Spain and your country, then you can use this certificate to prove that you're paying your social security and you don't need to do it in Spain, okay. The empadronamiento or padrón is the city hall registration of your rental contract or wherever you live in that specific Spanish city, okay? It is used as a proof of address. It's a one-page document, okay? And usually rentals of more than 6 months are accepted, okay? And the empadronamiento is used to do several procedures. For example, in most cases, to obtain your residency card. Once you are in Spain, most police stations will require that you have an empadronamiento. It's not always the case, but it is extremely useful to have it, okay? And definitely you will need to have it for the renewal. We mentioned the tarjeta de identidad extranjero, TIE card, or residency card. This is the plastic card called TIE, which is different from the NIE. The NIE is just a number. It's an ID number for a foreigner who lives, or for a foreigner who is engaging with Spain, okay? So when you obtain your visa in Spain, for example, you will get assigned automatically a NIE number, so a foreigner ID number. When you apply from abroad, okay, you need to obtain this number before to be able to apply for the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa. Now, once you are in Spain, and only from Spain, you get an appointment once your visa is granted with the police station here in Spain, and you go there, you put your fingerprints, and they give you a residency card, which is the plastic card, physical card with your face, with your NIE number, where it's stated what kind of residency you have, if you have work permit or not. We mentioned the number, as we said, it's just a number, okay? As a foreigner, Spaniards, for example, I am originally from Argentina. I used to have a NIE number for many years. Now I became Spaniard, and now I have a DNI, okay? Documento Nacional de Identidad. And as an example of a TIE card, or residency card, this is it, okay? This is the plastic card, the type of plastic card that you will obtain. And underlined in red, you have your NIE number, okay? All right, let's talk about the 2025 update, okay? So what things are changing in 2025? And I have a huge update for US nationals or people working for US companies. This update came out actually yesterday, okay? And it's happening as we speak, today and tomorrow. This is a major update for W-2 workers from United States or employees, okay, not contractors. Okay, what has changed in the last few days? Spain has stopped accepting the US certificate of coverage for digital nomad visa applications, okay? This type of worker had been accepted since mid-April this year, okay, so not too many months, okay, and also at the beginning of this visa from 2023, they were being accepted too, but then again, the certificate of coverage was not being accepted. By mid-April 2025, this certificate of coverage was accepted by Spain, and it seems that now it stopped being accepted again. So unfortunately, this is what many professionals applying for this visa are reporting, okay? Because their customers, W-2 customers from the States, they're being denied or they're being delayed, etc. Okay? Now, the thing is, there is a Congress happening exactly today and tomorrow. It's a Congress for lawyers and the director of the UGE. Well, hopefully, we're going to get an official statement about what's going on with this, okay? But if you are a W-2 employee that has applied not long ago, or you were planning to apply now, maybe potentially it is a possibility that you pause your application temporarily until this criteria from UGE is clarified, okay? The possible solutions right away, and always there was this solution, is to pivot to a 1099 contractor structure, which unfortunately will make you not eligible for the special tax regime called Beckham Law, right? So I have an article about this that you can find on Spainguru.es. It is actually the last article that I published. If you go to Spainguru.es, here, the last article is about this, okay? But basically, long story short, this is what's going on now. And of course, I will keep you updated of every news that we have regarding this. This, of course, only is affecting W-2 employees from the United States. Let's continue. More changes. In general, compared to the previous year, more documents now require apostilles, especially company certificates. There are stricter checks for business owners to prove real company activity, and professional experience must be backed by official evidence. Also, we mentioned before the special tax regime, also known as the Beckham Law. Only employees really are eligible for this special tax regime that enables them to pay just 24% tax rate on their employment income, and they have also other perks. They don't need to declare the 720 form with their overseas assets. They don't need to pay or file wealth tax in Spain, etc. So there are few advantages on this, okay? But remember that only employees or W-2s can be eligible for this tax regime. Also, we mentioned that UGE decisions can be quite inconsistent or erratic, so you need to be prepared to adapt and potentially to reapply, okay? And renewals now are treated nearly the same as new applications. So you need to be very, very careful when you renew as well. Now, before, just a few documents needed apostilles. Now, more documents need one. And when I say apostilles, is when there is a Hague Convention country that issued the document, or legalization by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the issuing country, okay? Now the company registration certificates must be apostilled. The tax or social security reports used as work proof require apostille. This was always the case. Marriage, birth certificates, civil partnership certificates, if applicable, if you're applying with your spouse or couple, need apostilles. And documents always from outside of Spain need to be legalized or apostille, as we said. And if they are not in Spanish, they need to be either sworn translated or translated in general. So that's important. Now, if you're a business owner, you will face more scrutiny, okay, than working for another company, or if you are just a contractor. The authorities will now require proof of your company is active and legitimate. So in the past, there were people getting companies off the shelf, companies that were, in fact, inactive, that they weren't really operating just for the purpose of applying for this visa, okay? So you will need to prove that the company is active by submitting company tax returns, invoices and contracts, proof of business expense or investment, evidence of clients and services delivered. And what's more, if your company has your own name or is family-owned, more scrutiny, okay? For small and self-employed, self-owned companies, you will have to provide proof of ownership, activity, client relationships. So this is expected that you submit all this extra documentation that potentially, if you are renewing back when you applied, you were not requested to do. Now, there's two options to apply. Either you have work experience for 3 years in a relevant field, okay, or you must have a degree, okay? Now, if you're proving work experience, you need to submit a detailed letter from former employers and clients where it is outlined your role, your responsibilities, and dates, okay? It has to be very easily tracked. There's also the need to provide official proof, okay? And depending whether you're applying as employee or freelance and from which country you are applying from, let's say, what kind of documents you will be able to gather, right? It will be different things that you need to provide as to be official proof. For example, social security records from the UK, HMRC, from the States, Social Security 750, or detailed report from your current or past companies, 1099s forms, okay? Tax documents, as we said, 1099s, P60s in the UK, self-employment pages, invoices and bank statements tied to your freelance work, okay? So now they want official proof, okay, for your work experience of 3 years. And those documents need to match what you state in your CV and the current job role. So we mentioned that at the beginning, when this visa was released, many people were sold that they were going to be paying only 15% income tax or 24% income tax. But the truth is that contractors, which is the way most applicants apply for this visa, because there's not too many agreements between Spain in terms of social security and other countries. And even if there is an agreement, it is not very clear that the social security certificate states that your job is remote or any other potential issues that make Spain not accept the certificate of coverage, like now is happening with the US. Okay, so generally, if you're applying as a contractor, unfortunately, you will not be able to be eligible for the special tax regime. So you will have to expect to pay under the ordinary regime, which taxes your income at standard progressive rates from 19% to 47%. And also, you will have to pay Social Security contributions every month, okay? Of course, those Social Security contributions will give you access to Spanish pension, to public healthcare sector, etc., right? But you won't be able to pay, let's say, low tax rates as if you're moving as an employee. We mentioned that UGE has pretty unpredictable decisions, so you need to have that in mind when you apply directly to the UGE, because as you can see, since mid-April, they were accepting the certificate of coverage. Now they're changing their mind again. This is the second time they do it. Only a few months, we had a window of acceptance to W-2 employees. So interpretations change all the time. The director of the UGE can change the interpretations anytime. And unfortunately, we find out the hard way, okay, by seeing people who are rejected or their applications are delayed, etc. So expect that. Expect a little bit of a rocky road ahead, okay? And also, there is variations depending on the case workers or the officials checking your case. We've heard of people who applied with a certain file, their strong case, and they got denied and then reapplied again without changing a single comma in their files and got accepted. So it doesn't make too much sense, but it has happened, okay? And also something to have in mind, especially if you're applying from Spain, it's better to reapply rather than appealing a decision which can take several months, okay? So you need to apply very, very quickly, as soon as you can, while you still have days within Schengen, okay? You probably know that you can stay in Schengen up to 90 days in 180 days period, okay? For most people who can enter the Schengen area without a Schengen visa. Other passport holders, like for example, Philippines, they need a Schengen visa to be able to enter the Schengen space and be able to apply from Spain. That's why it's more common that they apply from consulates like Manila rather than applying from Spain. But definitely there are advantages of applying from Spain. Okay, so you need to be careful with that. And also remember that there is some timing that matters. Applying just before August, for example, end of July or August or before Christmas can be worse because the offices are understaffed and they may be stricter or have more rushed decisions. Okay, so be careful also with that. Have that in mind. Now that we finish with the updates of 2025, we're going to go through the different requirements, the formal requirements. First of all, there is a financial threshold to be able to apply for this visa, okay? So depending who you ask, the more conservative people say that you have to make at the very least 2,763 euros per month before taxes and expenses, so gross figures, okay? And this is calculated over the minimum salary in Spain, okay, but on a 14-pay basis, okay? If you calculate it on a 12-pay basis, the minimum threshold is 2,600 euros. Now, to be on the safe side, everyone says you need to make 2,763 euros, okay? We're going to see later on the calculation. You need to be working remotely for a non-Spanish company or clients. Maximum 20% of your income can come from a Spanish clients and have either university degree or at least 3 years of relevant experience. You need to also provide a clean criminal record for the past 5 years and prove your employer or clients have existed for at least 1 year and confirm your work is performed remotely using digital tools. So not every job actually could be accepted for this visa. Here you can see the different calculations depending how many applicants are applying. So one applicant, as we said, conservative is 2,763 euros. And the couple is 75% of the minimum salary in Spain, therefore about 3,800 euros together with the main applicant. If you're applying with a family of 3, little over 4K, and family of 4, little down of 4.5K per month income. The amounts are gross, as we said, and if you're self-employed, income must be shown before deducting the costs. Okay. Now, people ask, can I use savings to support my case? The answer is yes. But even if it's not written anywhere, experts who apply all the time, they say that it should never be more than 200 euros per month. If you're applying with more family members, they tend to be more flexible, but the income has to be mostly based on active remote income. And it has to be documented through contracts, payslips, invoices, and bank statements. Now, let's go through the checklist. What documentations you need to submit? First, a signed letter from your employer or main client confirming your role, job title, job description. You're paying euros, so all the figures need to be in euros. Remote work authorization from Spain, and confirmation the arrangement is long-term. Your contract, ideally without a fixed end date. Why is this? Because if you have a contract without a fixed end date, they will grant you the visa for the longest period they can. If you're applying from Spain, it's going to be 3 years. If you're applying from a Spanish consulate, it's going to be maximum 1 year. Okay. Now, if you're applying as an employee and your certificate of coverage is shorter than that, then usually the visa will match the expiration date of your certificate of coverage. Let's continue. Last 3 months of stamped and or signed personal bank statements showing income, last 3 months of payslips and or invoices, the company certificate with apostille now, proving your employer or client has existed for at least 1 year, proof of qualifications or the 3 years of relevant experience, criminal background check and signed declaration, private health insurance in some cases, and passport application form, payment, receipt, and photo. Each document must be sworn translated and apostilled or legalized if required. So we mentioned this is an, let's say, old slide. Unfortunately, after yesterday, it is an old slide if you're applying as an employee like W2 and A1 certificate insights, okay? So right now for the US, this is an old slide, but of course, if you're applying from Canada, I'm hearing that the certificate of coverage of Canada is being accepted. I hope there is no change in criteria. And the UK certificate of coverage has always been accepted since the release of this visa type. So I am very doubtful that there is any change of criteria, because the A1 form is basically the inheritance of the European Union from since or when the UK was part of the European Union. And this A1 certificate is widely accepted. And I think Spain has to accept it, yes or yes, just because it's a EU member. Now, some people have the possibility of applying as an employee or as a self-employed, okay? And there are advantages and disadvantages of doing it with the different, with these different types of work, let's say, right? Or work arrangements, right? Obviously, if you're an employee, you need a certificate of coverage or A1, okay? And you will have different timelines or timeframes for obtaining all the different documentation, okay? The benefit is special tax regime, okay? And if you're applying as a self-employed, it is much faster, but then you will have to file your own taxes, etc., and ineligibility for Beckham Law, etc., etc. I have a question here. Thank you so much for joining today and asking a question. Upon submission, let's go and let's see if I can display it. Upon submission of the NB application, do you receive an NIE? Depends on where you're applying from. If you're applying from Spain, you do receive an NIE when the visa is granted, okay, automatically or en passant. But if you're applying from abroad, you normally need to obtain a NIE number before, and that takes time. Okay, for example, I was reading that in Manila, it's taking 3 months to obtain a NIE, and you need to count that towards the full time frame of the visa application. So first obtain a NIE, and then apply for the Digital Nomad Visa once you have the NIE. This is, as I said, from a Spanish consulate abroad. All right, so as you know, you will receive a recording of this webinar later on, so you can read this table with more time later on with the recording. This is again about certificates of coverage. Now, Spain gives you the possibility to, if you don't have a certificate of coverage, that your employer abroad either opens a company in Spain and pays Social Security on your behalf to Spain, okay, or you switch to a 1099 or contractor status and become autónomo. Now, the first option of your employer opening a company in Spain, it is not that common because it's a complex and pretty costly process. So most applicants will prefer to become remote contractors or consultants rather than direct Spanish payroll compliance. Okay, so if you're in this situation in which you potentially need to change your role from employee to contractor, make sure to have that already arranged with your company, because you will need at least 3 months of income as your new role as a contractor in order to be able to apply. Going self-employed, how and when to register. Now, it depends whether you obtain your visa from abroad or from Spain. If you obtain it from Spain, yes, you need to register. The law says that you need to register as soon as possible. They don't give clear timeframes, okay? So once you get your visa granted, you need to go and register as autónomo in Spain. Now, if you got your visa from outside of Spain, when you enter Spain, you need to register as autónomo, okay? You never register as autónomo before getting your visa granted. Once you register as autónomo, it means that you will have to pay Social Security contributions and also file regular tax declarations, not only your annual declarations like everyone else, but also on a quarterly basis. On a quarterly basis, you will have to file and pay income tax. So every quarter, I am autónomo. I have to advance a 20% income, okay? And then in my annual declaration, I have to pay the remainder that I didn't pay in my quarterly filings and declarations. And also, you will have to file VAT, okay, or IVA, which if you're a digital nomad and you're working for customers abroad, you won't need to charge them VAT for your services. Therefore, your VAT filings are probably going to be zero, okay? But in my case, for example, I have Spanish customers and I need to charge them VAT, and then I have to file it and pay it back on a quarterly basis and also on an annual basis, okay? Now, also, you will have to get your residency card. Once you enter Spain with your granted visa, you register as autónomo, and also immediately you start trying to get appointments with the national police in order to get your residency card, okay? It's important. You don't have to have a residency card to register as autónomo, okay? I have a slide about that, but basically, remember this, you have to register as autónomo even before you get your residency card. Also, something that you need to count on is about accounting fees, okay? If a lot of people are asking in the group, like, is it okay if I file taxes myself and everything? Yes, of course, if you are very good at this, or you're an accountant, etc., and you are happy to spend a long time doing it. But I'm telling you that I've been working, let's say, for many years in Spain. I'm a Spanish native speaker. I've been COO of a company and everything, and still I just can't manage to keep up with all this. And it's much better, in my opinion, to outsource this. It's not very expensive, but you have to do it, okay, in my opinion, because it's going to be really complicated and going to be taking a lot of risk if you do it by yourself. That's my recommendation. Let's go with some questions here. Next question here. Let me see. Stop displaying. We moved to Spain. Sorry, we moved to Spain and are living here now. We just got our NIE numbers, but haven't submitted our visa application yet. Is that okay? We moved to Spain and are living here now. And what is your immigration status? I don't understand. Are you as a tourist here? If you're as tourists, you are legally here. You need to be legally here in Spain, and you need to have an entry to Spain, okay, as either a passport stamp or a declaración de entrada, and then you can apply. You need a digital certificate or someone who applies on your behalf, like a lawyer or a gestor, and then you can do it from Spain, yes, even if you got already your NIE number. That's what I understand. And hopefully they will find you in the system. They will cross and match the information, and they will assign you the visa once you get it granted with your existing NIE number. Okay, and here. Is the A1 also required as Manila? Right now, as far as I understand, and I'm not an immigration lawyer, and all this is not legal advice, okay, I understand that certificate of coverage from Philippines is not something that is accepted. I don't know any employees from Philippines that apply as such. Normally, they would apply as contractors, as far as I understand. We're here on a tourist visa, 2 weeks. Okay, yes, so what I just said before. But people would apply immediately, because if you get rejected the first time, you will still have days left in order to reapply again. So you have to be very careful, because you cannot be, let's say, illegally or over those 90 days in order to reapply. That's why people just have everything prepared. They arrive to Spain, and literally the minute after, they apply. So this is the way people do it, just to make sure that they can reapply if anything goes not as expected, okay? So we mentioned about this, when to register as autónomo, okay? And a commonly asked question, can a criminal record affect your application? And yes, background checks are mandatory, part of the process, and you must provide it for every country where you live in the past 5 years. And even minor offenses can trigger delays or rejections, right? Spain generally will look for serious criminal convictions. Fraud, drug-related offenses, repeated offenses could also be a problem. And in some cases, older or minor infractions may be overlooked. For example, DUI, driving under the influence, so the severity of your record will make a difference, okay? And the officer checking your case will look on a case-by-case scenario, okay? And you will also need to sign a declaration confirming that you don't have pending charges. And of course, this is an official certificate that needs to be apostilled or legalized and soon translated into Spanish, okay? And if you have to leave earlier today and you think that the information that I'm sharing with you today is useful, it would really make my day and my week if you leave a review on Trustpilot. There's a button there on the top that will redirect you to Trustpilot, and you can leave a review right there. Now, do you need a degree? Alternatives that work. As we said, either 3 years of relevant experience is a possibility to apply, or a university degree is another way to qualify. It's important. A university diploma has to be in a relevant field related to your job role, must be legalized and officially translated, and degrees must be at a graduate or postgraduate level from recognized institutions, okay? And as we said, related to your job role. The option 2 is 3 years of professional experience, as we said, backed by official documentation. How you prove your freelance or contract experience? You need to submit a CV or curriculum vitae aligned with your application. This CV doesn't need to be sworn translated. It can have like just a normal translation, okay, made by ChatGPT or Google Translate. That would be enough. You would include client letters confirming your work history, scope, and timelines, as we mentioned before, and provide official documents, okay? We mentioned all this in the updates section for this possibility. Now, can you bring your family? These are the rules if you're planning to bring dependents. Yes, you can bring them. You can bring immediate family members and who can join also your application later on. You can include your spouse, legally registered partner, children under 18, and also, different from the Spanish non-lucrative visa, for example, that just changed and prohibited this, adult children and parents, okay, for specific dependent situations. Now, if you're planning to include a partner or spouse, you must provide either your marriage certificate, okay, new marriage certificate, so obtained recently with a certain validity of 3 or 6 months, depends, okay, and it must be apostilled by the authority that issued it and soon translated into Spanish. For example, you got married in California, must be state apostilled by the state of California. You married in Cyprus, must be apostilled by Cyprus authorities. Also, if you're applying with a partner and you're an unmarried couple, you need to show proof of shared finances or cohabitation, okay? If you can show a legal partnership document, okay, and you legalize it or apostille it and so translate it, that would be enough. But if you cannot show that because you're not legal partners, but you're a stable partner, okay, you need to prove that you're a couple, right? That is by showing shared finances, cohabitation of at least 1 year. Having children together will apparently not waive this requirement. You still need to show that you have cohabited for 1 year, okay? It will help make your case stronger to have children together, but cohabitation is important. And of course, have in mind that the more people applying, the financial threshold goes higher. Now, let's talk about children, okay? If you're bringing minor children that is less than 18 years old, a new valid birth certificate is required. Again, apostille and so on translated. Proof of financial support and school plans is also helpful. Now, if you're applying with adult children, that is children that are older than 18 years old, but under than 26, must show full-time studies, financial dependence, and proof of living with parents, okay? Like a single, let's say, a certificado de soltería or a certificate proving is also helpful because it proves that they're part of the same family unit and they're not part of another family. Of course, if they got married, for example, they wouldn't be able to apply as your dependents. Now, adult children of more than 18 and over 26, okay, you have to prove that they are medically or incapably dependent from you and provide official incapacity documentation. Adopted children include the court ruling confirming legal guardianship or adoption, and parents or in-laws, you must prove that there is a real stable financial or physical dependence, such as full support via bank transfers, okay? And you have to show the movements, you have to show the bank statements where you are sending money to your dependent parents or in-laws, okay? And each case will be assessed individually. Now, when your dependents are joining later on, there are some timeframes that you need to also observe, okay, for later applications. So as we said, family members can apply later, okay, not with the main applicant, because before it used to be the consideration that everyone had to be, for example, in Spain at the time of application. Now it is not like that. Your dependents can be in the country of origin. You can apply from within Spain and they can join you later. But if you're applying as a self-employed applicant, you must first be fully registered as autónomo before they can apply. And this can take some time. It's important that you observe this time frame. Now, let's talk about private health insurance coverage. Generally, in this visa, most people won't need private health insurance coverage, okay? Because either you are supplying a certificate of coverage from Social Security, or you're becoming a contractor and paying Social Security in Spain. And you, of course, have access to Spanish healthcare system, okay? But there is something to have in mind, especially if you're applying from Spain. There is an issue, which is that if you're planning to stay long-term in Spain and obtain the long-term residency after 5 years of uninterrupted legal residency in Spain, as we said, you need to have uninterrupted residency status for 5 years, but also no healthcare gaps, okay, coverage gaps. If you apply from Spain and you get your visa granted from Spain, your residency starts the day your visa is granted, okay? And if there is a gap between the day in which your visa is granted and from which you start paying Social Security as autónomo, for example, that gap will interrupt the coverage. Therefore, you need to have it in mind once you apply for the long-term residency later on, that gap will not count. So the clock will be reset to 0, okay? So if you're planning to stay long-term in Spain, potentially it is something to consider to get your private healthcare coverage, okay, that has to have certain conditions like no co-payments, no deductibles, full coverage, and being supplied by a health insurance company authorized to operate in Spain, so that you don't get, let's say, gaps later on, and you can obtain your long-term residency as soon as possible. Right? This is important. Also, to obtain the long-term residency after 5 years, you need to observe a certain minimum stay in Spain. You cannot be longer outside of Spain, longer than 10 months in 5 years, in the previous 5 years before applying. This can be extended to 12 months if you can prove it is for work reasons, okay? But better to be below and to be more conservative. Maximum 10 months in the previous 5 years. And this can be shared the way you want, but they cannot be in blocks of more than 6 months, okay? So also that minimum stay requirement for a long-term residency. If you're searching for a compliant, non-lucrative visa health insurance, you can contact my partner, Carlos Blanco, on spainguru.es/health insurance. He's not only an exclusive agent for Adeslas, this is the biggest health insurance company in Spain, but he's also an expert immigration lawyer who can help you. He understands exactly the timings of this visa. He can help you also with the application, but not only that, he understands exactly what you need for each case and can provide you with a compliant health insurance. And also he has start date extensions in case you buy the health insurance and you don't want to start it as soon as possible. He can extend the start date so that you don't start it without using it, okay, so you don't lose any money, right? So you can contact him via Spainguru and you can get a non-binding quote, okay? And also a phone call, where he can assess you with your own situation so you understand your possibilities. Let's talk about more stuff. Entry stamps, apostille, and translations. It's important that when you apply from Spain, you prove that you enter Spain, and not only the European Union or the Schengen area, right? The authorities need to see when you enter Spain. So it's important, if you fly from outside of Schengen into Spain, you will have proof of entry into Spain. But if you fly to another Schengen country, for example, you fly from Manila to Frankfurt, and then you drive from Frankfurt to Spain, or you fly from Frankfurt to Spain, you will be entering Spain from another Schengen country, Germany. You won't get immigration control in most cases. And therefore, there won't be any proof that you enter, except for maybe gas tickets from gas station or boarding passes from your planes, etc. So you don't want to have that issue, okay, of having to show those documents which are not true proof of entering the country. In that case, you should go to the nearest police station from the border or in the airport and get a one-page document called declaración de entrada, or entry statement, okay, where the police will stamp it and say Mr. or Mrs. has entered Spain in this certain date, and that is proof of entry into Spain from the police itself. And then when you go with your to apply for the visa, then you have this proof of entry, right? In case your passport has not been stamped or you haven't been gone through the newly released system called EES, entry-exit system, where they scan your face and fingerprints, etc. That it is taking months to roll out. Okay, and right now it's a little bit chaotic, but supposedly it will be fully rolled out by April 2026 in all the European Union. Let's talk also about, we mentioned already apostille and sworn translations. We mentioned that the CV can have a normal translation, not a sworn translation. And you will also have to submit application forms, which must be fully completed and signed. And you have to be careful about everything that you fill out because anything can be a potential delay. Now, we mentioned the different documents, which ones need apostille and which ones need sworn translation, right? There you can see your contract doesn't need to be apostille, okay, but requires a sworn translation. Letter from client doesn't need apostille, but does require sworn translation. The certificate of incorporation now requires apostille and sworn translation. The background check, apostille and translation, sworn translation. Marriage, birth certificates, legal partnership, etc. always require apostille and sworn translation. And educational credentials, they require both. Official government documents for proof of work, also apostille and sworn translation. Previous certificate of employment doesn't require apostille, but it does require sworn translation. Financial documents doesn't require apostille or sworn translation, which is great because financial documents tend to be a lot, and you will be spending a lot of money into sworn translations. CV, again, just no apostille and just a simple translation. And insurance, only if you're applying as employee, you will be provided a certificate of coverage by the insurance company, and that will be enough because it will be in Spanish provided by the companies authorized to operate in Spain. Topping up income with savings. We mentioned that maximum 200 euros. This is not based in a law, in a rule. This is based on experience of people who apply every single day for this visa. And remember, the income must be a remote active income. Now, the pros and cons of applying from Spain. Okay, there's many pros and a few cons. The pros of applying from Spain, you don't need to wait in your home country. You can enter Spain as a tourist and apply once you are there. It is faster appointment, okay, because you don't need an appointment. Now, if you're applying from a consulate, you will need to set an appointment, and that's a huge bottleneck, okay? Once you enter Spain, you apply online using a digital certificate, okay, and or using the certificate of a proxy or third party that you have hired to apply for you. It is a more streamlined process compared to the consulates, even though they can be also a little bit erratic in the decisions that we mentioned. There is greater control over your move because once you are in Spain, you can parallelly already do other arrangements like settle housing, school, logistics, etc., while you're waiting for your approval. There is easier family reunification later. Once you're approved, your family members can join you as dependents. No medical certificate or income tax return to prove income. Okay, and the approval grants you longer time of residency if your contract is without a fixed date, 3 years versus 1. And guarantee of approval by administrative silence after not responding in 20 working days. This happened quite a lot. Okay, if after 20 days you don't get an official answer, you are approved because of positive administrative silence, and it is a faster turnaround than the consulates. I've been hearing that some consulates even take several months even to get you an answer, and nothing really happens. There's not much you can do about it. Now, there's also some cons, like a strict 90-day window we mentioned. There's the 90 in 180-day rule for Schengen, and you have to apply while legally within that window. This is extremely important. You will need an entry proof, as we mentioned before, and this is a con. Your visa will start immediately, okay? It's not going to be in the future. The day the visa is granted, your residency starts, potentially creating some issues in terms of healthcare coverage, etc. So you don't control it as much. And basically, you cannot really appeal the process. In practice, it's much better to reapply. And if you don't have days left, unfortunately, you will have to leave and come back, okay? If you and reapply again once you have days, okay? Now, while your visa application is going on, okay, you can still stay in Spain, even if your 90 days are over, okay? I have asked in the Digital Nomad Visa group whether people apply from consulates abroad versus Spain, and almost 80% of people in my group apply from Spain, okay, versus about 20% who doesn't. And the timeline looks like, first, you'll have to prepare your documents, regardless if you apply from outside of Spain or from within Spain. Okay, but if you're applying from Spain, this is specific to that. You prepare your documents, okay, like passport, proof of income, contracts, certificate of coverage, if it's your case. Then you travel to Spain. Yes, this is the case of applying from Spain. But if you didn't, first of all, you need to get your NIE number from a consulate and then applying from outside of Spain. Now, if you can travel to Spain, you submit your application once you have a entry date, very, very fast, as soon as possible, okay? You wait for the resolution, usually up to 20 business days, with a positive administrative silence, and then you receive your residency. What if your clients aren't companies, okay? If you work with individuals, that's okay. And the key is to prove the relationship is stable, long-term, and remote. Okay, you have to include invoices with client names, proof of regular payments, and written confirmation from the client about the work you do. For multiple smaller clients, have to show consistent income across several months and avoid contracts that suggest you are doing work for Spanish-based individuals unless clearly allowed. Now, also, if you're working for NGOs, this is also okay and acceptable if those NGOs operate like a company. So showing consistent activity, legal status, and financial transactions is key. Once you are in Spain and you need to get your residency card, you will face also a big block, which is the lack of appointments with foreign offices or national police stations. These are also called TIE appointments or fingerprints appointments, okay? And it is a big issue, especially now. For example, Valencia, which is very popular among digital nomads, there's a lot of delays in major cities, but you have to know that you can also get your TIE card in any police station within the same province, okay? Now, the big issue will be that in most police stations will require you an empadronamiento. Okay, yesterday I was reading someone who went to Girona, which is in a different province than Barcelona, which is 1.5 hour drive. Okay, and they didn't want to receive this person for the TIE appointment because this person had an empadronamiento from Barcelona. Okay, so you have to do it from within the same province. Okay, now there is a trick. Okay, which is via the UGE, you can request an appointment to do it in Madrid or Barcelona, even if you're staying somewhere else, okay? And when you go to the TIE appointment in any of these cities, they will not require you an empadronamiento, okay? Therefore, you will be able to apply. You just spend one night or two in a hotel in any of those two cities, and potentially you can get your TIE card without having to wait for appointments in your province. Now, if you want to know the how-to guide on how to get an appointment, here's an article, okay? You just search Spainguru, how-to guide getting TIE, and you can get this article that shows you every single step to get your TIE card. And if you want to hear more in detail about the TIE hack that I told you about getting the TIE in Madrid and Barcelona, because a lot of people have traveled to get empadronamientos, okay, because not all the rentals are valid for empadronamientos. Sometimes you can't get a rental property where the landlord gives you permission to get your empadronamiento. So all that can have an impact. So therefore, knowing that through the UGE, getting a TIE appointment in Madrid and Barcelona without empadronamiento can be useful. Let's talk about taxes and social security. So if you register as a self-employed or autónomo, as we mentioned, first, you will pay income taxes on a quarterly and annual basis, and also you will have to pay social security contributions. How much are those social security contributions? Usually the first year you will pay around 90 euros per month. Okay. Now, depending on where you move, there are schemes where you can get that money paid back on the second year. Okay. It's called quota cero. Okay. For example, in Andalusia, Madrid, or Barcelona, there is this quota cero. Then my first year as autónomo, I paid 90 euros per month. And then the following year, I claim it back and they pay me back. So the first year, I didn't pay social security. Now, the second year, they will assign you a bigger payment, okay, or installment or social security payment. That will be around 300 euros. Okay, and now things are changing, and in the past, let's say, or currently, until this changes any time, autónomos, we could decide how much to contribute. Okay, so you contribute more, then your pension will be higher. If you have parental leave, you will be getting more money, etc. But things are evolving, and the government wants to select your contribution for social security automatically depending on how much you are earning. Okay, I don't know how fast they will update this, but basically if you're making more money, you will be paying more, and if you're making less money, you will be paying less. Okay, and also they plan to increase the social security contributions because, as you probably heard, well, Spain has a strong welfare state. Okay, and there is a big problem with the pensions here, and that's why Spain is betting hard on immigration and also release this type of visa, probably because they want people to be enrolled in Social Security to cover for the expenses for this huge pensions invoice that we're having every single month. So this is the situation. Now, paying for Social Security in Spain will give you access to Spanish public healthcare system, subsidized medicines also, retirement and disability coverage, and parental leave and sickness benefits. Okay, so it's important that you also budget this accordingly. So not only taxes, but also Social Security contributions. Okay. Now, enough about Social Security contributions. We're going to talk about income taxes. We mentioned that ordinary income, okay, is taxed at 19% to 47% progressive tax brackets. Okay, so a lot of people tend to think when they just see this table, for example, if you are in the fifth tax bracket that goes from 60,000 euros of taxable income to 300,000 euros, you will be paying 45% income tax. But it is not true, okay? If you're making, for example, 100K of taxable income, doesn't mean that you're gonna pay 45,000 euros of income tax. Rather, you will be paying an effective tax rate of around 36, 37%. Why? The way it works is that for the first 12,450 euros of that 100K income that you're making, you will be paying 19% tax. For the following almost 8K, you will pay 24% tax. For 15K, 30, for 25,000, 37, etc. Therefore, you will be paying an average or a median of those progressive tax brackets, right? So the effective tax rate for 100K would be around 36% income tax. Now, for the different amount of income, of taxable income, this is, of course, ballpark figures, round numbers, just for illustrative purposes. If you're making 30K, you will be paying 24% income tax plus Social Security as an autónomo. 40K of income, 26%, going up to 36 if you're making 100K. And if you are self-employed, as we mentioned, every quarter you need to file your income tax. You need to file your VAT. In January, you will pay your annual VAT or file your VAT. And you will have to file in June, deadline 30th of June, your annual income tax, okay? Also, once you become a Spanish tax resident, you will have to declare your overseas assets if they are over a certain threshold. By overseas assets and rights held abroad, we're talking about properties, bank accounts, cryptocurrencies, etc. Okay? Now, again, get a gestor or tax accountant to do these filings. If you need my recommendations, you can go to spainguru.es. And this is a chart that explains you, because a lot of people say like, wow, all these taxes and all these Social Security contributions, how much really will be left in my pocket, okay? How much will be net? Starting with a minimum financial threshold of 2,750 euros gross that is required to apply for this visa as a main applicant, the total deduction will be around 31%, okay? That is income tax and Social Security contributions. Social Security contributions can be deducted from your income as an expense, okay? So it goes to 39% if you're making 10K per month. If you want to know more about taxes, I'm not a tax advisor, okay? And it's not going to be tax advice, etc. But if you want to go deeper into taxes in general in Spain, you can join my free webinar, okay, for Spanish taxes. Just go to Spainguru, register, and you get also a recording when I do it. Now, let's talk about visa renewal. We mentioned that now they're stricter, and it almost should be considered as applying again, except for the fact that you have all the, you're already normally living in Spain, and you can prepare it with more time, okay? Now, usually, if you have a fixed, let's say, an unended contract, okay, and you apply from Spain, you will get it until 3 years, your residency. So during these 3 years, you don't need to do anything, okay? If you're applying from abroad, it's on maximum 1 year. And also, if you have a certificate of coverage, depending when that certificate of coverage ends, you should also end you should reapply for a residency if that certificate of coverage ends, okay? We've seen people who by mistake got the digital nomad visa a longer time, okay, for 3 years, but maybe their certificate of coverage was only 2 years, and they were asking, what should I do? The answer is, be careful, you need to apply for a residency after the certificate of coverage ends, okay, and not wait until the visa permit by mistake was given for 3 years, so 1 extra year without having a certificate of coverage covering you, okay? Now, remember that in order to apply for the renewal, you can start 60 days before the residency expiration. You need to look at your TIE card, the expiration date, that's 60 days. That's the period in which you can start applying for a renewal, okay? Don't wait until the last minute, because the earlier you apply, the more time you have to solve any potential issues in your renewal, okay? So this is important. And also, if you're planning to stay for the long term in Spain after 5 years long-term residency, make sure to understand that you need to have uninterrupted residency status. An interruption in your residency status can set the clock to 0, okay? So if you stay 3 years in Spain and then you have an interruption and then you got another residency, but you got an interruption, you lost the 3 years that you already had passed. Another thing to have in mind is that if you're a passport holder of any of those countries in red, Ibero-American countries, Philippines, Andorra, Portugal, Brazil, you can apply for Spanish citizenship after only 2 years of legal residency in Spain. There's a minimum stay requirement of maximum 90. You can only be outside of Spain for maximum 90 days for each of the 2 years before applying for the citizenship. Now, if you are from any of the countries in gray, you have to wait 10 years of legal residency in Spain. If you marry a Spaniard, after 1 year of legal residency, you can apply for Spanish citizenship, and there are other conditions, but long story short, this is the situation. So if you're a passport holder of any of those red countries, you will be able to apply faster or earlier than the long-term residency, which is 5 years, okay, for Spanish citizenship. Now, remember, when you're renewing, you will still need to meet all the income, work, and legal requirements. Okay, you need to show updated income proof for the past 6 to 12 months, updated criminal record certificate from Spain, proof of continued remote work or business activity, confirmation of Spanish address, and up-to-date padrón on empadronamiento. And if there are any changes, you changed employer, you lost your job, etc., you need to inform the UGE within 30 days of your of any changes in your status. Display. Question: if you need to reapply for the DNB, will you need to duplicate documents, or will UGE return your original documents along with your response? So what I understand is that you apply digitally to UGE, so you have your documents, right? So as long as they're valid, you can reapply using the same documents, okay? But remember, there's a validity period for several documents, so everything needs to be valid at the time of reapplying. I'm not a lawyer, okay? This is not legal advice, but this is what I see and hear from the different groups and the different experts that I read every single day. What's different when you renew your visa? Common renewal issues: income drops below the required level, freelancers fail to show consistent activity, delays with paperwork or expired documents, what I just mentioned, new apostille requirements, okay? People who applied initially without having to get apostille for certain documents, and now they got stricter in 2025, and they forgot to add apostilles. Gaps in health coverage as well. You need to be covered, okay, but comprehensive health insurance or access to the public healthcare in Spain. And other things to consider is, as we mentioned before, if you're applying for a long-term residency, no gaps in residency permit, no gaps in healthcare coverage, minimum stay requirements is important. And yeah, everything was mentioned. And some tips for smooth renewal. Be organized, of course. Keep your income statements, invoices, client letters, social security payment records if you're self-employed. Monitor your income to ensure you meet the threshold every month. Update your empadronamiento if you move. Registering for empadronamiento takes time. Here in Malaga, it's taking 2 months, for example. Then to get the paper that shows that you're empadronado, you can do it online, okay? And you get it immediately with a certificate, okay? With a digital certificate or a clave certificate. That takes no. But registering, like going to the office with your rental contract, with your passport, with your visa, etc., with your residency, that takes time, right? So if you're moving from one place to another, be careful with that. Monitor your income to ensure you meet the threshold every month. Update empadronamiento. Set reminders to begin the renewal process at least 60 days before expiration of your TIE card dates. And you have to start gathering documents 4 to 3 months before expiration, minimum, and get the new background check from Spain, okay, or certificado de antecedentes penales with no pending legal issues. And remember, if your certificate of coverage as an employee is expiring, be careful, because you have the responsibility to be covered during the whole time, even if your residency was issued for a longer time. And you have to have a strategy set up to not have interruptions in your residency status if you pretend to stay in Spain longer. Okay, so either you reapply for a renewal of your certificate of marriage in your home country, which tends to be difficult, okay, to obtain a renewal. Either you switch to autónomo and register to the Spanish Social Security, and also you do it even before the expiration of the certificate, very important. Or you convince your employer to register for Spain's Social Security, okay, but this is pretty unlikely as for what we see. You will leave Spain temporarily, but that will reset your clock for a long-term residency because there is an interruption in residency. And also there are other immigration pathways like arraigo, switching to a non-lucrative visa, or switching to an ordinary work permit for a Spanish company or for your own permit, etc. But all these pathways need to be very, very clear. And that's why consulting and being together with an immigration lawyer who understands all these pathways is very, very, very important, because you have to, you can make very small, dumb mistakes, unfortunately, that can give you problems later on. So it's important that you set up the right strategy for the long term if you're planning to change your status after your digital nomad visa expires. Okay, so it's important to have that in mind. Remember, you can use Spainguru.es for free. Okay, join my weekly newsletter that I send every Monday to 15,000 readers, where I keep you updated for any changes. Watch my YouTube channel with more than 1,000 videos, more than 2,000 articles in the blog, and of course, a huge community with an aggregated total members of 150,000 members. If you like the content of today's webinar, please leave a review on Trustpilot. If you're watching this on YouTube, please ask any questions in the comment. You can also give a like and subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Join my other webinars, 6 webinars out there. All of them are free. Every single week I have webinars, and always I send you a free recording. And of course, if you need expert advice, at the very least, I recommend you to engage with immigration expert and a tax expert. They don't have to be my recommended ones in general. If you're moving to Spain, at least consult with an hour with an immigration expert and tax advisors. Okay. Of course, if you do it with mine, you are in very safe hands. Have great reviews out there. I have been personally vetting these professionals for several years, and they are very, very used to this type of visas. They are updated of all the changes, and of course, they will give you a good service. But these two, taxes sometimes and immigration, they don't go hand by hand. Sometimes your tax objectives go in one direction and your immigration objectives go in another direction. So you need to make sure that those two things match at the very least, okay? And of course, you can find any other service that you may need for your move or staying in Spain on Spainguru.es. You can always write me an email to hello@spainguru.es. I always answer, okay? And if I don't know the answer, I can at least point you in the right direction, show you a group on Facebook, articles, videos, professionals who can help you with that. So yeah, definitely always send me an email if you wish. And remember, the content of this webinar is for information purposes only, and it's not legal advice. Everything listed here is not official, so please check the specific requirements for this visa. So we don't have any more questions. I really appreciate everyone joining today. I will send you a recording very, very soon. We'll upload it to Spainguru's YouTube channel. And thank you so much for joining. I wish you luck. If you're thinking about applying for this visa, I wish you very, very good luck with this application. And I'm here for you anytime. Just send me an email, and I'll be happy to answer you. Again, if you think that this information is useful, please leave a review on Trustpilot. And see you around. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, and one more thing. Apparently, YouTube says you're gonna love watching this video right here. I think you should watch it.